Welcome. This is a presentation on the road to PBP 2023. I am Raghu Vishal. I'm the director of Audax India. I'll be presenting you a brief overview about PBP as an event, including its history and format, and we'll be doing a shallow dive into the pre-qualification and qualification requirements, the schedule leading up to the event, uh, the route of the event, and how best to prepare for it. At the time of creating this presentation, the event is still about 10 months out. So this is to give you some brief details, critical information. However, there will be more information coming out in the following months. Paris-Brest-Paris, or PBP for short, is a 1,200 kilometer long brevet organized by ACP in France once every 4 years. So this is a quadrennial event. The last edition was held in 2019, and the next edition, which will be the 20th edition, will be held in August 2023. So in 2019, this event saw more than 6,000 randonneurs from over 40 countries. So to give you a brief overview of PBP in numbers, it is a 1,200 kilometer long brevet. To be more specific, in the 2019 edition, it was 1,214 kilometers long, and it is expected to be about the same distance in 2023, since the start point is Rambouillet, the same location as in 2019. The total elevation gain is about 12,000 meters, which may vary slightly between different platforms, whatever you may be using, like Strava or Ride with GPS. And this number may also vary between different GPS bike computers that the riders use. But 12,000 meters is a fairly accurate number, and this is what you should expect to climb on this ride. The time limit is 90 hours, but there are other options if you wish to choose a shorter time limit of 80 hours or 84 hours. I will explain the basic differences among these different time limit options in a later slide, but I expect most people to opt for the 90 hours cutoff. And in that situation, you will get 42 hours to reach Brest, uh, which is the turnaround point, and 48 hours to return to Paris. It's very typical for riders to take more time on the return leg, and these cutoffs are set accordingly. The participation limit in 2019 was set at 7,000 randonneurs, and there were more than 6,500 cyclists that started. The participation limit in 2023 has been increased to 8,000, which reflects the growing popularity of this event amongst randonneurs globally. There are over 40 countries represented at PBP, with, of course, France having the most entries. The first edition of PBP was conducted in 1891 by a local newspaper in France, Le Petit Journal. The event was conceived as a competitive race from Paris to the port town of Brest and back. It was designed to test the endurance of cyclists. The race was organized once every 10 years, which goes to show the enormous logistics involved in conducting a cross country bicycle race in an era without motor vehicles and telephones. So I can imagine it took a lot of coordination and planning for them to be able to even conduct once every 10 years. The sixth edition of the race was disrupted by World War II, so it was conducted later in 1948. An interesting fact of this event is that its inception predates the inception of the more popular and professional Grand Tour, the Tour de France, which I anticipate you've all heard of and even watched every year. In fact, the winner of the second edition of PBP in 1901, Maurice Garin, went on to win the very first edition of Tour de France in 1903. So, PBP has always been an event where professionals and amateurs participated together. But over the years, PBP saw declining participation from the professionals as they moved to single day races and multi stage races. So then the administration of PBP fell to the randonneurs in the 50s and 60s. So while the the modern version of PBP is no longer a professional race, they do acknowledge the shortest completion time each year, though there is no prize or podium, so to speak. Should you decide to participate in PBP, know that you will be doing so in the oldest cycling event in the world that is still being conducted in modern times. This is also the only sporting event to have a dessert named after it, the Paris Brest. So, as you can see, this event has quite the legacy. The first time riders from Audax India participated at PBP was in 2011, and we had 15 participants, with two getting homologated. The participation from India grew to 55 riders in 2015, with 22 of them getting homologated. 2015 was also the year AIR's founder Divya Tate was specially recognized for her efforts in overseeing the largest growth in randonneuring in any country. The 19th edition of PBP in 2019 saw a staggering rise in participation, with over 300 riders taking on the challenge. Unfortunately, the performance as a nation group was dismal, with only 41 riders getting homologated. Overall, about 65% of all riders finish PBP, but the finish rate for Asian countries is much lower. Japan had the highest finish rate amongst the Asian nations, with about 50% finish rate amongst their 350 participants. India's performance in PBP 2019 particularly exposed the glaring fact that the Indian randonneuring community is still quite young, with a lot to learn, and has a long way to go to be at par with some of the European nations that have been riding PBP for decades. We will address in a later slide some of the common issues that were challenging specifically for the Indians at PBP. So that was some general background and brief history of PBP to help you understand the legacy and format of the event. We will now focus on the upcoming 20th edition of PBP in 2023. At the time of compiling this presentation, the official PBP website is still undergoing some work, but I was able to pull some information during a short window when the site was operational. At the time of publishing this presentation, the French version of their site is operational, but the English version seems to be down. All the specific information on PBP 2023 is subject to change, so please do check for latest updates on the official PBP website. We will link the official PBP website on Audax India's site, specifically on the PBP resources webpage, which will have links to a lot more content related to PBP. So beginning with the PBP 2023 schedule and timeline. So the event itself is slated for August 20th to 24th, 2023. So riders will begin to flag off in batches beginning on 20th August 2023. Now for the event, the pre-registration window will start from January 14th, 2023. The registration window will start on 27th May 2023. I will explain in a bit the difference between pre-registration and registration. The registration closes on 2nd July 2023. Now, the pre-qualifying ride, has to be the longest ride that will be used to determine your priority in the opening of pre-registration window, has to be in the time frame of 1st November 2021 to 31st October 2022. So the first priority will be given to those who ride 1,000 kilometers or longer in the preceding season. Now, for converting your pre-registration into a registration, you need to complete one SR series uh, during the season leading up to PBP. So that time frame is 1st November 2022 till 20th June 2023. Keep in mind you need to allow for some margin time for getting your last ride homologated if you're going to be doing a lot of riding leading into June. Typical 2 week travel plan for most participants at PBP would be between 14th August to 27th August. So you can probably mark your calendars for your travel accordingly. So it's important to understand that pre-registration is not the same as registration. And if you pre-register, it does not imply that you need not complete the registration process later on. Uh, if you complete your pre-qualifying ride, it does not exempt you from having to complete your SR series as the qualification ride in the season of PBP. So the pre-registration window will open in priority of longest ride completed during the preceding season, which is 2021 to 2022, the season ending on October 31st, 2022. You must provide the homologation number of your longest BRM during the pre-registration sign-up process. There will be a non-refundable pre-registration fee of 50 euros. It was 30 euros in 2019. Now, the pre-registration will simply block your starting spot only till you convert it to registration by completing the qualifying SR series and pay the balance registration fees by 2nd July 2023. If you fail to complete your registration process, then you will forfeit your blocked spot. An earlier pre-registration window will give you preference of selecting your starting time. The starting time blocks are every 15 minutes for 300 riders. This was the format in 2019. I suspect they might make some minor changes in 2023 to accommodate the additional participation. So a quick tip here is to create your login account on the PBP registration site before your pre-registration window opens. This is to ensure that you don't struggle with the sign up process in just creating a basic login account in order for you to pre-register. The participants from the 2019 edition should be able to use the same login credentials. In case you haven't logged into the ACP website in a very long time or since the last PBP, then I do suggest you go ahead and use the forgot password option and regain access to your earlier account. This table gives the timeline of when your pre-registration window will open based on your longest homologated ride in the preceding season. So as I mentioned earlier, if you've ridden 1,000 kilometer or longer distance in the preceding season, then your pre-registration window will open on 14th January 2023, and then with a gap of every 2 weeks, accordingly, the next slot opens up. So if your longest ride in 2022 has been a 200 kilometer, or if you did not ride at all, please do not panic. There were many riders who were able to register for PBP in 2019 without any pre-qualifying rides in 2018, since many who pre-registered had later opted to drop out. The registration fee for the 2023 edition of PBP is not yet published online. I presume they're still working out the final numbers. But for reference, you should know that the entry fee in 2019 was 135 euros. This includes the pre registration fee if you pre register. Once the registration opens, you will have to enter the homologation numbers of your four qualifying rides, opt for the event jersey and its size, select the reflective vest size, and opt for any optional services and pay the balance registration fee net of the pre-registration fee paid earlier. Registration can be done with three of the four qualifying rides, but the application will be processed only after you submit the homologation number for the fourth ride. As I mentioned earlier, pre-registration will be cancelled by 20th June if you don't convert it to final registration. The PBP registration fee will include your participation at PBP, the official water bottle. In 2019, they gave us an option between a 500 ml or a 700 ml version. They will also include an official reflective vest which conforms to French road laws. So I don't recommend that you use whatever reflective vest that you may be riding your brevets in India. It is safer to use the reflective vest issued by ACP for this event in order to ensure you are complying with the road rules over there during your participation. The fee also includes the left luggage service at the start point. So basically, before you flag off, you can carry one small bag of fresh clothes and leave them with the organizers at the start point. And this bag will be available to you to collect at the finish line only. This should not be confused with the drop bag service. This is not going to be transported to any of the control points by ACP. This will only remain at Rambouillet. The next point is the fee will include your meal at the finish line. They will issue also a waterproof document pouch in which you can keep probably your wallet and the brevet card and any other important document for you to carry during the ride. You will also be issued a PBP frame badge. Basically, this is your bib number to be fixed on your bicycle. Uh, in 2019, the bib also had an RFID tag on it, and they had set up RFID antennae at all the controls. So as you rolled into each control, your arrival time was also digitally marked, and your friends and family could track you in a mobile tracking app. The brevet card and rider follow-up services are also included in the fee. The fee also includes the finisher's medal, provided you arrive before the closing of the facilities, and the time label for the medal will be mailed after homologation. The registration also includes the arrow signs, route markers on the course, supervision by official cars and motorcyclists, access to the various checkpoints and food stops. This is not to be confused with the actual food that is provided, that has to be paid for additionally. Uh, this is just about accessibility to the control points. You will also be provided emergency support at the checkpoints. There will always be a first aid point available at every checkpoint. There will also be a PBP movie about the event that will be uploaded to the official website, which you can access after the event is over. The event will also include an insurance in the registration fee. However, please note that this insurance is only for third party damage. This does not cover the rider's bicycle in any way. That should be covered in a separate travel insurance. The list of services not covered under the registration fee is not exhaustive. Basically, anything not covered in the previous list will have to be paid for extra. The fees for additional services haven't been published yet by ACP, so I have provided the numbers from the 2019 edition as a reference. You may expect the cost to be the same or marginally higher for PBP 2023. In 2019, all controls accepted credit card as payment for the food, and the lines were never that long. I saw elaborate arrangements of pipes and taps for riders to refill their water bottles. But if you are particular about drinking only bottled mineral water, then you will have to pay for it. You will also have to pay for a proper sleeping bed with a blanket and wake up service. You need to give the wake up time when paying for your bed, and one of the volunteers will come and wake you up. Do not expect the organizers to come rescue you on the route if you DNF. Your best option is to ride to the nearest control to report that you quit and seek guidance on how to return to Rambouillet by train. You will have to pay for your own train ticket. There is no drop-bag service provided by ACP, but some private vendors have popped up who offer to pick up your drop bag from your hotel and transport it to the control point of your choice, and then return your drop bag to the finish or your hotel after the control is closed. Your drop bag will not be accessible to you if you are late and are riding outside the time limit, which is important for you to note. The bulk of the participants at PBP will be in the 90-hour cutoff for solo bikes category. This is the block highlighted in green. In 2019, the time gap between each wave was 15 minutes, and the size of each wave was 300 riders so as to manage road traffic on the route. I anticipate the size of each wave may change marginally in 2023 with the increase in participation to 8,000 riders. We recommend only previous finishers of PBP, also known as PBP Ancien, to consider the shorter time limit categories. Those riders opting for the 84-hour cutoff will typically expect to ride solo on the route as they flag off the next day morning. There will be riders who are accustomed to riding alone and may even prefer it. There will also be some logistical issues associated with the 84-hour cutoff since local trains won't operate in the early hours. I recall from 2019 that the last train from Versailles left for Rambouillet at 6 p.m. Some riders have expressed an interest to participate on a tandem, in which case you have only one time slot in 90 hours and one time slot in 84 hours. You are short on options. Riders in the 80-hour cutoff are usually the very seasoned riders, typically racing for an early finish under 50 hours or under 60 hours. In 2016, we had two riders from India riding in the 80-hour cutoff, amongst whom one rider finished in about 78 hours and the other finished in 82 hours. Obviously, the rider who finished in 82 hours didn't get homologated, so that is also something you must contemplate if you're thinking to ride in the shorter cutoffs. From their finish timings, I also presume they mostly rode in the 90-hour cutoff groups on the route. So, in my personal opinion, it makes more sense to just register with the 90-hour group and then ride with the 90-hour group to maximize your chances of finishing the ride with the homologation. We had 25 riders register in the 2019 edition for the 84-hour option, mostly for the benefit of an early morning start, since most of us are accustomed to a morning start in the BRMs in India. I did hear most of those 25 riders who rode the 84-hour cutoff time in 2019 regretted their decision. So I caution you again to consider registering in the shorter time option only if you finished PBP in 2019 within the given cutoff and are looking for a different type of challenge or a different experience at PBP in 2023. An example of a different experience may be that those in the 84-hour may cover some stages in the daytime, which the 90-hour riders may cover in the nighttime. Also, the control points early on for the 84-hour group will be mostly desolate, so you might be able to get through each control much faster. The budget for PBP might arguably be the most important aspect. Many of you might have looked up this presentation to understand. Indians should expect to spend about 2 to 2.5 lakhs on a 2 week long trip for PBP on a general list of things mentioned here. This is just to give you an idea of how much it will cost you to go for PBP and also do some reasonable bit of local travel, sightseeing, shopping restricted to little trinkets and mementos. We will post an Excel sheet detailing all the various expenses that I personally incurred in 2019 under different categories. So that might enable you to fine tune your own personal budget and also give you a fair idea of some of the typical costs involved. For now, just make a note of the approximate amount you might have to prepare for or save up for to spend on this trip. Of course, some people are able to shave this budget down by condensing their trip down to only 7 to 10 days, but that tends to make the trip quite hectic. But you may be short on time due to work commitments or short on budget, as the case may be. These are some of the challenges faced by Indians at the 2019 edition. The list is compiled from the common complaints and excuses, dare I say excuses, given to me in personal interactions or the blogs written by riders. I myself didn't finish PBP in 2019 and had to eventually quit at Brest after riding 612 kilometers, terribly sleep deprived. I had to make that tough call to quit for my own safety. I came to accept the simple fact that I was undertrained for the relentless hill climbs, and as a result, I gradually lost all my margin time from the first control till I got to Karhe, which stressed me to take fewer breaks, and I barely got 30 minutes of total sleep from Rambouillet to Brest. I have no excuses and no one else to blame but myself for not training harder. So I urge all of you to seriously consider doing hill climb training for at least one day every week. This is the best way for you to get better at climbs. The other issue I wanted to stress upon were mechanical breakdowns. Surprisingly, a lot of the riders had to quit because of mechanical issues in their bikes. Uh, I mean, this is something that is easily solvable. Obviously, at least a month before you travel for this trip, you should get a thorough maintenance and servicing done locally to get your probably your chain replaced, get your brakes checked, your shifter cables, brake cables, things of that nature. These are very simple things that you should get it thoroughly checked well before the event. So, what is the PBP route terrain like? Basically, it's a rolling terrain with just relentless short climbs. There are no long climbs like 5 to 10 kilometers long or 20 kilometers long, nothing of that nature. There are no long, tall mountains to climb. They're all short hills, which might range from 1 to 3 kilometers. The average gradient is 6%, which isn't much and sounds easy, but you start the pain starts to kick in after you climb the 40th or the 50th hill, and that's pretty much what beats everybody down is the fact that there are absolutely no flat stages at PBP. There is one long climb. It's the only exception. It's called the Rock Traversal. It's about 11 kilometers long, but even from the steeper side, it's only a 2% gradient. So basically, it's a very gradual climb to the top. So it's not much of a challenge. Basically, you need to find a hill nearby that might be 2 to 3 kilometers long, and then just do climb repeats on that hill to get better prepared to take up this event. So the total elevation gain in this route will be about 12,000 meters, which is about 10 meters per kilometer. The road conditions are good. You won't find anything like potholes or broken tarmac on this route. The road surface is just a little coarse, so the top layer won't be like butter smooth road like how you find the Indian national highways and state highways. The coarser surface is, I presume, for better tire traction during the winters when it snows. So this will impede your speed to some marginal degree. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, the roads are very much rideable. Maybe you might encounter a few cobblestone sections when you're passing through some of the French villages, but they're very small, short sections. Nothing to be too concerned about. The route is generally across the rural sections. This will not be motorways or highways like in India. The traffic percentage will be fairly low. I mean, the motor traffic percentage will be fairly low, and motorists will generally respect a safe distance for the cyclists, which was very pleasant to note. Moving on to the next aspect, which is navigation. Uh, the PBP route will have route markers at all the turns. You will basically see an arrow marking you towards Brest, and an arrow leading you back to Paris. So there will be only two kinds of route markers, an arrow pointing towards Brest and an arrow pointing towards Paris. So PBP is full of turns at roundabouts, and it's easy to make a wrong turn in a town if you're not attentive for the route markers. In 2019, there were a handful of Indians who lost their way at PBP and ended up getting a DNF because they just weren't attentive for the route markers. They may have been probably just blindly riding behind other fellow participants. It should be fairly easy if you go through one or two crossroads or roundabouts and you don't notice a single route marker, then it's probably safe to assume that you're on the wrong route. It's better to just stop for a minute and check your current location, and you may have to backtrack maybe a couple of kilometers if you haven't ridden too far out. The organizers will provide GPS tracks as well for all the 15 stages, so you can load each stage as you clear each control point on your bike computer. Uh, the organizers also provide a route cue sheet. However, a physical copy is not provided. They'll be posting it on the official website for you to download and print and carry with you if you prefer navigating with a physical cue sheet. The control points at PBP are very well organized. You will have a wonderful bike parking area as soon as you roll into the control point, and there will be arrow markers to guide you to where to get your brevet card stamped. There will be RFID receivers for tracking your bib digitally as well. uh, there will be food arrangements. Some of the controls have a rapid section where you probably may not even have to get off your bike. You can just roll up to that section and quickly grab something to eat. The options will generally be minimum, and then there will be a more elaborate sit down dining area with some kind of a buffet line with the payment counter at the end of it, with various options to pick from. And you'll at some of the controls you'll also have sleeping arrangements which will be marked, the sleeping area, so you can get some wake up service as well. Volunteers will very politely come wake you up with a torchlight to flash in your eyes, so you get up at the time you uh, give them. You will have a designated drop bag area at Ludiac. Again, just a reminder that drop bag is not provided by ACP. The drop bag service will have to be opted through a third party service provider, but at the control point there will be a separate designated area where uh, riders can collect their drop bags. Each control point will also have mechanical support with spares sold over there. So don't worry about carrying too many things with you. Don't take the kitchen sink, stay light, carry only the essentials. Know that you will get fairly good support at the controls. You don't need to bring a support car, in my opinion, and have it loaded with all kinds of spares. I found the control points to be very well organized and very well stocked. I was even able to buy spare coin cell batteries for my HR sensor at one of the controls. You can also buy energy gels, energy bars at the control. So again, you don't need to worry about carrying 50 energy bars for the whole 1200 kilometers right from start to finish. Yeah. Uh, the one notable aspect I did appreciate is that the designated cycle parking area was also monitored by the volunteers. So I personally experienced to once one of the volunteers walked up to me just to check the bib number on my helmet matched with the bib number on my bicycle. So, that gave me a sense of security that my belongings are under watch. You will also have elaborate tap water system. So, there will be a flurry of riders uh, trying to get their water bottles refilled to keep them hydrated till the next control. There will be first aid facilities also at every control. So if you need any kind of assistance, you can approach the medical tent. I request everyone to be very polite with all the volunteers you come in contact with. Keep in mind, most of these volunteers are just local French residents. They may not necessarily be randonneurs or even cyclists. So don't bombard them or expect them to answer all kinds of event related queries. If you're running late, you don't expect them to give you an answer on whether you will get homologated. Things of that nature will get addressed only at the finish point, where the volunteers are specifically collecting your brevet cards. Most riders plan their PBP ride into three major parts. The first part being Rambouillet to Loudiac. On the way out, you will have Mortain as only a rest stop where they serve food. There won't be any brevet card stamping at this location. You will also have on somewhere on stage 5 a rest stop at Cadillac. This could be a secret control. It's obviously never declared beforehand. But again, at this point, unless it is a secret control, you don't have to get your brevet card stamped. Uh, you should check with the volunteers as you pass through Cadillac. And this location is also set up so as to reduce the traffic load at Ludiac, which tends to be a honeypot, as most riders will take a very long rest break at Ludiac, and generally you will see the maximum congregation of randonneurs at this control amongst all other controls. The second part of the PBP route would be Ludiac, Brest, Ludiac, Brest being the turnaround point. You will have to reach Brest within 42 hours. Keep that in mind. Again, somewhere along stage 6, you will come across Saint Nicola. This was a secret control back in 2019. It's not necessary. This might be a secret control again in 2023. But just like at Cadillac, you should stop at St. Nicola and check with the volunteers if it is a secret control. And if it is so, make sure you get your brevet card stamped. I'm stressing on this aspect during this presentation because some of the riders in 2019 from India did face a bit of a language issue because the volunteers spoke only French, and some of the riders didn't even bother to stop at this location to check with the volunteers. You will see large banners of PBP. So this is not something you can easily miss unless you are simply not paying attention to the route. Finally, the last part of the route would be your return journey from Ludiac to Rambouillet. Again, you will encounter Cadillac on stage 10 as you head back. Once again, I advise you to stop here and check whether it's a possible secret control. Keep in mind that Mortan is now a control on the way back, though it was not a control on the way out. And there is a slight deviation to the route on the return journey as you pass through Drew, which will also be a control point on the return. Here's a quick overview of the event conditions. It will be summertime during PBP, so the days will be longer and you can expect daylight till 9 pm, which is much longer than we are accustomed to in India. August is also vacation season in France when most folks take a break from work to travel to the countryside. You will get a lot of support from local townsfolk along the route as you will be riding past their homes. Locals will come out to cheer for the riders and will even set up elaborate decorations and put up a picnic table to serve riders some home brewed coffee and some home baked cakes and cookies. It was always a lot of fun to just stop by and say hello and even get your water bottles refilled. They're extremely polite and helpful. You can anticipate the weather conditions to be severely cold at night, with the temperatures dropping to 4 degrees Celsius at night, which was quite colder than I'm used to riding in India. In fact, it was the coldest. And then the temperature peaked to a sunny 35 degrees Celsius in the afternoon. So I had to shed a couple of layers during the daytime. It also rained in the past four editions, ranging from light to moderate to heavy. Hence, it is imperative that riders buy foul weather technical clothing specifically for PBP to keep yourself warm and dry during the ride. The 2019 edition was particularly windy, so it would help to ride in a group and take turns to lead. So, how does one train best for PBP? It's all about hill climb training because PBP is just full of climbs, climbs, and more climbs. As I said earlier, the typical climb at PBP will range from 1 kilometer to 3 kilometers long, and the average gradient will be 6%. So, the ideal way to train is to find that one hill close to your home and go do hill climb repeats at least once a week. And that's when you will only focus on the elevation gain. You are not to worry about your average speed or your uh, uh, distance posted to Strava. You should only focus on the elevation gain on the days you're doing hill climb repeats. Doing this at least once a week will help you to learn to shift gears efficiently and even pedal efficiently. In case you live in a fairly flat terrain area, you have no hills nearby for you to train on, then your next best bet is to buy an indoor trainer and do some power based indoor training. You should do some FTP test and periodically check your improvement on your FTP. There are plenty of online indoor training resources like Wahoo X, Trainer Road, and Zwift. I have personally used Trainer Road and found it to be very effective. Apart from these aforementioned options, you should also look to get an HR sensor and do heart rate based training if power based training is not an option for you. Get a cadence sensor as well. And when you do your regular rides outdoors, you can also look to incorporate some high cadence drills and low cadence drills. So an example of this would be to do 15-second intervals to 45-second intervals of high cadence drills at 110 RPM or above. You can also attempt to do low cadence drills by setting your gear to a tougher level and ride at say 70 to 75 RPM, which would also to some degree help you develop those climbing muscles. With the event at least 10 months out, you should be focusing on base training right now. So what is base training? Base training is basically training at low intensity, low cardio intensity, to be more particular. So if you're using a power meter, this would mean riding at zone 2 uh, of your power. And if you're riding with an HR sensor, focus on riding at zone 2 and maybe the lower end of zone 3 of your heart rate. The base training will help to develop a strong cardio fitness for a ride that's 1200 kilometers long. You should also focus basically on a polarized training schedule. Polarized training simply means that 80% of your training time in a week, say you spend at lower sub threshold intensity, and 20% of your time you spend at threshold or above threshold training. So the functional threshold power or threshold is basically referred to the amount of power output you're able to sustain on an average for a 1 hour time period. So this is easier to calculate, obviously, if you have a power meter or an indoor trainer. If you don't have one, maybe you can go uh, do this test at a friend's place who might have an indoor trainer. So I do advise you to at least have some form of structure to your training, have a structured approach to your training. Although any unstructured training will also yield some improvement over a period of time, but definitely given time constraints for most of us based on our professional and personal commitments, a structured training approach will be much more time efficient. Also try to set tangible goals. Keep in mind that your progression will not be linear necessarily. Expect non-linear progression. What I mean by this is there might be some weeks in your training when you are going through a low point. This may be due to work stress or other issues, not necessarily with regards to training, or you may have uh, done a bit of overtraining that leads you to take some time off the saddle. I cannot stress enough how much losing a bit of body weight might do wonders for your timing on climbing uphill. So, do try to set some moderate changes in your diet to help you lose that little bit of weight early on, uh, which would be much more sustainable. You could also look to take up weight training to uh, do some body recomposition, and put on some muscle weight, which might help you in the event. You you should also seriously consider getting a professional bike fit if you don't have the privilege of having a bike fitter in your town. uh, then you could look up some YouTube videos. Francis Cade has some good videos on YouTube specifically for bike fit. I think you can Google bike fit Tuesdays, and that might give you some much needed general advice on how to approach to your position on the bike, which can make a world of difference in reducing the pain that you unnecessarily suffer on the saddle. Furthermore, I strongly recommend focusing on some core training off the saddle. You could hit your local gym and focus on some strength training with heavy weights and lesser reps, which is proven to yield better results on the saddle. You could also look to yoga and Pilates, which would also yield some very positive results on the saddle. Try to also occasionally train on holding a plank. Start small. If you've never done planks before, uh, you can start with as little as just 15 seconds and then slowly build on it to beyond 1 minute at a time, and try to do that 3 times with some reasonable rest breaks in between. And if you do something as simple as this, holding a plank, and do this exercise at least 2 3 times a week, you will be surprised at how much longer you can be in an aero position on a road bike. Also keep in mind to get some good amount of sleep. 7 to 8 hours of sleep is your best recovery tool, in addition to some stretching. So a common question that riders wonder is, what kind of bicycle will I need to attempt PBP, or what's the best bicycle? So here I want to put everyone at ease. There are plenty of different types of bicycles that cross the finish line. You can train on the bicycle that you already have. Don't worry about having to Google what a randonneuring classic cycle is like, and what stress about having to buy a new bicycle specifically for this event. The most popular choice of bicycle at this event you'll see are road bikes with drop handlebars. And Typically, most people ride geared bikes, though at PBP, you will find a few riders who are attempting PBP on a fixed gear bicycle or even a single speed bicycle. Uh, I don't advise being this adventurous if PBP, this is your first attempt at PBP in 2023. Stick to a good geared bicycle that you may already have. You can look to go with clipless pedals, but if you don't already have clipless pedals, your regular pedals and regular shoes should be just fine. There is no scientific data, contrary to popular belief, to prove that clipless pedals are much more efficient in any way. uh, Clipless pedals do help some riders to ride injury free, but your regular pedals and regular shoes should be just fine at PBP. Like I mentioned earlier numerous times, the average gradient is only 6%. So don't stress about having to upgrade your bicycle components for climbing, so to speak. You don't need to go buy a new cassette and convert your rear derailleur to a long cage derailleur for to accommodate a 32 tooth cassette. If you what you have is up to 28 tooth cassette, 11 speed, it should still be perfectly fine. You don't need to worry about upgrading your bicycle components to the latest 12 speed or anything of that nature. When it comes to road tire width, uh, you can go with 25C or 28C. It's now a proven fact, and even professionals are moving to a wider tire width as opposed to the conventional wisdom of 23C tires or even 22C tires for road bikes. In terms of your lighting system, a lot of people do wonder about dynamo hubs. If you are not intending to ride a lot of 1200 Ks or 1000 Ks, then I recommend you stick to a traditional battery based lighting system, which is far more budget friendly uh, option. In terms of battery management, I highly recommend you get a tail light which runs on AAA batteries. If you don't already have one, I can personally recommend the Cat-Eye Omni 3, which I am personally using. And keep in mind that PBP will require you to run your tail light in steady mode. This is because of the local French road laws that the tail light must be a steady mode red color, and you can't have it in blinking mode. A key challenge in brevets is navigation, which can be easily overcome by leveraging technology by buying a good bike computer like one made by Garmin or Wahoo. There are other brands out there that you can consider. This will make your training and navigation much easier. You should use your qualification brevets to sort out what essentials you need to carry and how you carry all your equipment and spares. Do you prefer a handlebar bag or a frame bag? Which items would you rather stuff in your saddle bag, and which items go in your jersey pockets? What kind of energy bars do you like? Which flavor? Do you prefer energy gels or an energy and electrolyte drinks mixed in your water bottle? These are the kinds of issues you should sort out in your longer training rides and your qualifying brevets. I highly recommend that you ride your qualifiers with loaded bags. I made the mistake myself of not training with a loaded saddlebag, and in the process, it was a bit of a struggle climbing uphill with so much additional weight. If you opt for a drop bag service, then make sure you pack it with the basics: two sets of clothes, maybe some toiletries like soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, and maybe some essential spares like a battery bank and a spare tire, perhaps. If you stuff your drop bag with too many things, then you will fumble and faff about too much at the control. If you plan to participate in many outstation rides, then I recommend you invest in a good bike box for the long term. In case you don't intend to travel much with your bike other than this one ride at PBP, then you could opt to rent or borrow a friend's bike box. You can pick between a hard or a soft bike box or even a cardboard box. The hard box is typically made of a tough plastic material that offers the best protection but at a premium price. The soft bike boxes are usually made of fabric or canvas and have a padding inside to protect your bike. If you're on a tight budget, then you can even consider getting a cardboard box of a bicycle from your local bike shop, which they may be just throwing away when they unpack a, a new cycle. It can be a bit inconvenient to travel with a cardboard bike box as it won't have wheels or a shoulder strap or even a handle to properly pick up. But if you're in a pinch budget wise, then this could be a viable option for you. Next, we will talk about investing in some good technical cycling specific clothing, which will help you succeed at PBP. You basically need to get layers to keep yourself warm during the cold nights and stay dry when it rains. You can then shed those layers during the day when it is dry and sunny. A good quality foul weather jacket can perform both functions. Look for a jacket that is made of special material like Gore-Tex or Polartec or Merino wool. These materials offer protection and breathability. A regular raincoat will offer protection without any breathability as it is not meant for sports. You need to get a cycling specific jacket. You will find yourself drenched in your own sweat if your jacket is not breathable and comfortable. Soft shell jackets will offer better breathability and less water resistance, while hard shell jackets will offer more protection from rain but relatively less breathability. So you need to weigh what is more comfortable for you. Some of the popular brands for cycling specific jackets are Gore, Castelli, Endura, and Patagonia. You should also have a good set of shoe covers and full fingered winter gloves. A good set of arm and leg warmers will keep you cozy in the night and offer the convenience to take them off during the sunny afternoon for comfort. Here are some travel hacks worth noting. Make sure you book your excess luggage in advance on your airline's website and read up on their policy with regards to sports equipment and particularly bike boxes. Some airlines charge extra for bike boxes, so when you're booking and look for flight tickets and comparing the different rates, you need to factor this aspect into your comparisons. You may need to telephone the airline's help number and intimate them in advance that you're traveling with a bike box. So it's necessary you read their guidelines. Loco2 is a good app for booking your train tickets for local travel within France or even across Europe in case you plan on an extended vacation as part of your PBP trip. Uber works just fine in France. So if you're used to using Uber in India, it should work just fine for you in France. But there are alternatives as well, which you could try out. Many randonneurs struggled with their visa applications in 2019 with a rejection in their first attempt. I highly recommend you seek the services of a professional visa consultant or a travel agent who can guide you based on your personal travel history and financial profile. To further strengthen your financial profile, you should get your CA to issue a net worth certificate, and you should also submit your credit card statements apart from your bank statements in case you plan to partly fund your trip with your credit card. Please note that Shenzhen tourist visa application requires copies of air tickets and hotel bookings, unlike the US or UK visa where you may do your travel bookings after you get your visa. Make sure to buy some euro currency in advance, especially since the euro has currently fallen to its previous 2019 levels. Too much cash can be risky to travel, to carry. So I strongly recommend having a credit card or a prepaid forex card for secure travel. Speaking of secure travel, make sure you buy a travel insurance separate from the standard policy offered by airlines. Those hardly offer 500 USD sum assured for your luggage, which is woefully inadequate for your bicycle and your other belongings. ICICI Lombard offers some good international travel insurance policies, which you can check out on their official website. Please be sure to read the fine print. Identity theft and credit card fraud are rampant in Europe, so be sure to get a card protection plan or CPP to secure all your bank cards during your travel. Some Indian chargers do work in European power sockets, but I still recommend you get a travel power adapter specifically for EU. For your hotel or Airbnb bookings, look for options within your budget in Montparnasse area in Paris or else in Versailles, a suburb of Paris, which is a bit closer to Rambouillet, which is the start point for PBP. There are extremely limited options on Rambouillet itself with 8,000 riders participating, so you are unlikely to get accommodation at Rambouillet. So also, it's a very tiny place with not much to offer for tourists. But Versailles and Montparnasse both have direct trains to Rambouillet, so it will be convenient to travel to the start point and do some local sightseeing or shopping in Paris. In case you plan to check out of your hotel for the duration of PVP, then you can avail of luggage storage services offered by Nanny Bag and Bag BNB. Also, I always travel these days with an AirTag in my luggage, which gives me some assurance or peace of mind that I can track down my bags in case my airline or hotel misplaces my bags. There are comparable technology options for Android users as well. To conclude, I encourage you all to just enjoy this festival of cycling and don't burden yourself too much with anxiety or stress or obligations to perform. Please take the time to click pictures, talk to fellow randonneurs, and make new friends in France. These opportunities are very rare, so don't fret too much. Keep your spirits high and just enjoy cycling across the French countryside. Also, don't forget to eat a pastry whenever you feel low and need that little boost. Thank you.